What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Form Check Friday. And now for those of you who have been here before, we left off with our boy Chris doing some squats. If you're interested in getting featured on Form Check Friday, go ahead and click the video that's going to be annotated on the screen right now. And without any further ado, let's dive on in. So Chris is a high school lifter. He says he's been lifting for about 3 years, doing some conjugate style stuff, and that squat is his weakest lift. This here is a set of 4 at about 80%. He says he noticed himself some knee cave, hips shooting up, and his weight shifts to his heels. He says he's been using pause squats to try to get around that and was wondering if maybe his stance is a little bit off. He also says he has an issue with hitting the plates when he's unracking the bar. So the first thing I'm noticing here is we are a little bit quite tilted over, and I think that we could be going a little bit less into that tilt until we initiate the squat. Now, I think that with pushing back so far, we are putting a lot of weight on the heels here. I think we could be distributing the weight a little more evenly through the feet, which is going to help you sort of stay in your quads out of the bottom. Now, if we watch as he comes up out of the bottom, we definitely do see the knees shift back, which causes the butt to shoot up like that. Now, Chris, I want you to think about, again, that pressure through the forefoot, kind of like in the big toe area, and really thinking about keeping those knees forward, especially as you change directions in the bottom. I think a lot of times we think about lifting fast and lifting speedy, and one of the things we need to do is try to think about lifting smooth. Smooth is fast, and fast is strong, and whatever else. But anyways, be smooth, because that's going to get you a better transition out of the bottom, and it's going to help you stay in your quads a little bit better, which I think is one of the big culprits here. Is we're losing the quads, the load's shifting to the posterior chain, and we're just kind of getting a bit out of position. Now, pause squats are going to be great for that, but make sure that you're not rushing those pause squats out of the bottom either, because we're just going to reinforce this bad pattern. Now, in terms of hitting the plates when you unrack, just watch you're not shifting side to side, right? Make sure that your walkout is straight back. Try not to twist as you come back, and try not to take too big of steps as you go through your walkout. So hopefully that gives you an idea of some things you can work on, and I hope that helps, man. Now, our next submission today comes from Edgard. Now, Edgard is from Mexico. He's using a Titan Magnum Ram here. He says he wants to compete single ply someday, and he's wondering how to get a bigger bench. So for the most part, honestly, Edgard, your bench looks pretty fantastic here. I think the biggest thing is we're just getting a little bit loose in the leg drive. You can see that we kind of allow some tension to lapse on the way down and really jolt back into the bar on the way up. I think we could be doing a better job of keeping yourself nice and big. You're a nice thick boy here, so keep that chest up, limit that range of motion, and let's try to make sure that we're really reaching the chest up to that bar as you descend. Other than this looks great, and I definitely think that the Magnum Ram is a great way to start transitioning into single ply. So best of luck with your journey. Let's keep a little bit more constant tension through that leg drive, and I think you'll see a lot of success with that. Next up, we have a deadlift from Ryan here. Now, Ryan says he's pulling 3 reps at 320, about an 8 RP, and he says he has no interest in competing, just wants to get a little bit better, get a little bit stronger, kind of general health idea here. So let's take a look and see what his pull looks like. Awesome, man. This looks really good. I definitely think we can work with this. So we'll watch this last rep. All right. So the number one thing I think that you can do to help your deadlift here is pull from this position. Pull from this hip height. You look like you're in a really good position here. What you do is you sit your butt too low, and then your hips shoot back up, and then the bar comes off the floor here when you're in more of a stiff-legged position. If you initiated the pull from here, you're going to be in a great place to be able to use your quads, stay nice and tall, and sort of minimize how much hip extension you need at lockout. But when you sit down like that, it causes, again, like we were seeing in Chris's squat, the load sort of translates back to that posterior chain. We're not able to use as much quads off the floor, and we end up in more of a stiff-legged position. So I think that if you can keep the hips higher, but not let the knees shoot back when you start deadlifting, try to think about pushing the floor away, and use the deadlift as a sort of quad exercise. I almost want it to feel like a leg press for you. But I think that'll go a long ways for you if you can sort of stay in that higher hipped position here. It seems counterintuitive because you think, oh, the more I sit my butt down, the better I can use my quads. But obviously this is not the ideal position here, because we go from this sort of, I'm just going to draw a line around your butt there, and before the bar leaves the floor, we are here. So big shift in that hip angle, right? And I think if we had started a little bit hips higher, we'd see a lot less shifting and a lot more sort of able to keep that load balance between sort of the quads and the posterior. Up next, we have Gareth doing some squats here. And Gareth is a 66 kilo lifter like myself. Says he might be moving up to the 74s, wants to return to the platform this year. 200 kilo squat max. He says he notices his knee cave and his hips shooting up. So 2 suggestions I have to try here. Number 1, let's take a look at this bottom position. Oop, there we go. So let's pause it in the hole here. So right now we are a little bit sort of knees inside of the feet. So there's 2 things I would try. Number 1, I would think about bringing your stance in a little bit and keeping that toes straight forward angle. Number 2, I would try turning the toes out a bit to allow you to kind of open the hips and get those femurs sort of angled out a little bit more. Much like Chris, I do think we're shifting a fair bit here. You can even, if you look you can very faintly see the toe picking up as we shift the weight to the heels. So try to make sure you're keeping that weight forward a little bit through the toes, really kind of pushing and thinking about staying in the quads as you come up out of the bottom. This amount of shift is pretty minimal. I don't think it's a huge big thing, but you can see he's getting rocked kind of forward a little bit from the bar. So if we can minimize that, it's probably going to end in a net positive when he gets under max loads. So let's try some stance and toe angle modifications, as well as just thinking about keeping the knees forward a little bit more. One thing that tends to really help for these, and Chris, if you're still watching, try these as well, but pin squats can be really helpful. So hopefully that helps you, and we're on to the next one. And now we have Kyungil. I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, but I'm doing my best here. Kyungil is benching 190 for a set of 5 here. He says his max is 225 and he's feeling really stuck. So there's a couple things that I noticed right off the hop here. As you unrack, the shoulders protract, right? We're losing the shoulders forward. So let's really try to keep that tension back and down, right? We want to retract and depress. That's how we set up for the bench press. We're definitely not depressed enough here either. So as you unrack, I would pull that bar out a little bit more, and I would try to bring the shoulder blades down into your back at the same time, right? So we're bringing the bar down only as far as our shoulder blades can move down, and that's going to help us start the press from a better place. The next thing, look at the velocity you're hitting your chest with. You're just dumping it onto your chest, and the bar's ending up here, and your elbows are way back behind it, which means when you start to press, what's going to happen is that bar is probably going to go out this way, right? Let's see what this bar path looks like. Not bad, actually. Not nearly as bad as I anticipated. So maintaining more tension on the chest, i.e. keeping your elbows in, controlling that end of the range of motion instead of dropping it from the midpoint into your chest. We're also not using a lot of leg drive, so you could think about using your legs to push back and up and drive your chest up to meet the bar. Not only is that going to limit the range of motion, but it's going to help you with the repeatability of your bench technique, which I think is suffering a little bit here. You're bringing your head up, which is a common thing that I see. I think it came from the days of multiply powerlifting, when rules didn't matter. It was like, whose line is it anyways? You just make up the scores. But more or less, you're losing a lot of tension when your head comes up like that, because what's happening is that the shoulders will elevate further, and we're not coming into a position of tension in the bottom. We're coming into a lot of looseness, and we can see these elbows start to flare more and more and more as the shoulders creep up further during this set, and that's just going to result in a kind of not ideal bench for the most part. So we're lacking a lot of tightness kind of overall. So more shoulders down, more shoulders back, more control through the bottom of the range of motion, more leg drive, bringing the chest up to the bar, and I think that's a good starting point. So best of luck with that, man. And next up is Gabriel. Now Gabriel here is doing some deadlifts. He says he's been training for about 10 months. He weighs 82 kilos. His max is 160, and he's currently running a variation of 531. Now Gabriel noticed 2 major flaws, he says, in his own deadlift rather. And number 1, he says he's really slow at locking the hips out. He says he kind of pushes his knees under the bar as it gets over his knees, and says his hips rise a little bit too fast, causing his torso position to change off of the floor. So I want to know what you guys think. So go ahead and leave it in the comments below, and we'll see y'all next week for Form Check Friday.